What's going on, everybody? This is your boy DeLion with BW Sports One and Southern Indiana Combat Production. That's right, folks. SICP 6 Fall Brawl presented by D. Patrick Ford Lincoln of Evansville, Saturday, October 5th, down in Evansville, live at the Old National Events Plaza. And right now with me, I have one half of that huge main event matchup for the 170-pound pro title. Dustin Bam Bam Parrish, what is happening, my friend? How are we doing?
Doing wonderful. Happy to be here. Excited to be headlining such an exciting card. SICP is doing big things down in Evansville, and I'm just proud to play my part.
Well, we greatly appreciate you making the trip down, taking the fight against the reigning 170-pound champ, Zach Davis. Before we get to, what's coming up here in not too long, let's give the folks a little journey of a backstory of Dustin Parrish, how you got involved in fighting, kind of where you landed over the years, and where you're at here now.
Yeah, absolutely. Started wrestling back at age 4, got into that years and years ago. Wrestled all the way up until my first year of college. I did a year at the University of Indianapolis there and wrestled for them, but had actually already started training and fighting prior to that. So I started training right after my junior year of high school, was really looking for a break from wrestling, but wanted to stay active. So I started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And they were like, hey, if you're training all this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you might as well hang out and do the Muay Thai class with us. So then I started doing Muay Thai classes. And then before I know it, they're like, hey, you've done wrestling tournaments. Let's jump into a jiu-jitsu tournament. So I did a couple of those. And then I was like, man, I think I'm ready to fight. And I took my first fight basically a month after my high school graduation, and really haven't stopped since 15 years later. So it's kind of crazy to be here on the pro scene, headlining big cards, and getting great opportunities like this one.
So what is it like for somebody, as young as you were, pretty much making that transition from amateur to professional level in this sport?
Yeah, it was a crazy transition for me because I turned pro fairly young. I think I was 23 or 24 at the time. So I turned pro mainly because it was starting to get really hard to find amateur fights. I think for my last amateur fight, we went through 15, 16 different opponents that I had accepted but had turned me down. Mm-hmm. So the crazy part was actually for my last amateur fight, I had made a lower weight class, and on my way to the venue, the promoter calls me. He's like, hey, your guy never showed up to weigh in, but we got a guy who's up a weight class if you want to still fight tonight. And I was like, you know what? Might as well. And so I fought up a weight class that night, and that was kind of the final straw for me. The promoter and I sat down after the fact, and I turned pro on his next card. So that was it was a crazy experience. There weren't as many amateur leagues as there are now. It wasn't as well vetted of a system back in the early 2000s, early 20-teens. Mm-hmm. So being able to turn pro then at that point, and then slowly working my way up. I fought on UFC Fight Pass. I fought at LFA. I fought on some really cool shows now across the country, and it's fun to get a big fight close to home. Normally, I have to travel a lot farther for these type of fights.
Yeah. So you did mention kind of the past experiences with the fight scene and the organizations that were around in the past compared to how they are established now. What do you see is difference from back then to now, like SICP?
I think the sport's matured around the promotions at this point. Back in the day, you had all these promotions that would kind of pop up, do 1 or 2 shows, and then fold down. And there weren't a ton of high-quality gyms. There were probably, in the entire state of Indiana, 6 really high-quality MMA gyms that you could go to. Now there's probably 6 in Indianapolis alone, if not more, plus what you have, around the rest of the state. So the fact that the sport has matured, it's forced the promotions to become a lot more professional. The big thing I noticed with SICP is they're doing the things the right way. And so that's why I wanted to become a part of it, is really stepping into a promotion who I know is handling business the correct way.
Well, definitely like to hear that and greatly appreciate it. Going back over your amateur career, you had a pretty good stint. That one loss that you had on your amateur career, I actually was there live to witness that fight. That was probably
Yeah.
one of the best amateur fights around at that time, and probably still up there with you and Sean Fallon. That was one hell of a fight you guys put on. What does the competition How does the competition, in your opinion, seem from like the past to now? Now, granted, you were a different fighter back then. You were younger. You're not in the same full mindset as you are now. You know, uh, but as far as the fighters themselves, you guys and what you guys go through now compared to then, what is difference? What's changed? What's the same?
Um, One of the big difference I would say is the amateur ranks now are much closer to what the early day pro ranks were. Where now, if an amateur fight drops out the week of, it's basically out. Where back in the day, it was a little more Wild West. As long as you had your blood work and physical in, they'd let you fight same day. So you could get some of those same day matchups where, smart or not smart, coaches don't allow that anymore. Myself as a coach, I don't allow that. If we have a guy drop out anything less than a week, we just kind of wash our hands of it, call it a mulligan, and we'll get him next time. Where back in the day, you could do a lot more with that. I definitely think skill levels have risen, just like anything. With enough time, people get better, not just at the training of the physical sport, but the strength conditioning is better these days. The nutrition has more science behind it. There's a lot more that goes into the amateurs even I coach right now than what I was doing back in the day. And so it's really raised the level of all the amateurs, as well as it's forced all of us older school pros. I'm 31, but 15 years in the game, even I'm still having to evolve my game because the guys underneath me are still pushing and challenging me to get better every day.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned coaching. Let's talk about that a little bit. How was the transition between, being in the cage to putting yourself outside the cage, training the next generation, or looking at from the corner standpoint, being outside the cage and seeing what you see then?
It was an odd transition. I'd always been kind of a second in corners. I was the guy that would hold the water bottle, warm you up, be the moving punching bag while you were in the back. I was really good at that role. And so when I had to step up and become more of a head coach, more of a head trainer, head corner, there's a lot of pressure that goes with that I felt really initially, because if someone gets hurt, you feel like you're responsible for that. So that was a huge transition for me, just, kind of taking that ownership of those guys and making sure they were fully prepared for these fights. One of the biggest things that helped me with on the positive side was obviously I was able to then get really good at dissecting fighters, getting really good at, kind of, hey, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I'm not seeing, breaking down film in a much more efficient manner. All those things I was able to add and bring back to my own game. But I will tell you, cornering other people fighting is the worst part of coaching for me. It is the most stressful thing. I'm less nervous when I fight than when I corner.
I can see that.
There's a lot of stress that goes into that for me because I really care about my guys and I want to make sure they're happy, healthy, and, come out with the win. And so for me, my guys laugh at me because I'll be stressed myself into a little ball, wrapping their hands and stuff. And they're like, hey, you can calm down. I'm like, I wish I could, really wish I could, but here we are.
So is that why you don't put any of your students on the same card that you fight on then?
Very rare that I will let a lot of my guys fight on the same card as me. We'll occasionally get some guys on, if we're traveling really far out of town, we'll drag some guys out with us. We tried on this one. It just didn't end up working out as well as I would have liked. But it's tough for me to, get my head in the game when they're fighting, before me and stuff like that to kind of get myself refocused. So it is difficult at times to encourage them to fight on the same card as me. Because one, I won't corner on nights I'm fighting.
Right.
And two, so I feel like they're missing out on me being in the corner. But then I'm also just as stressed for them fighting even more so than I am for myself. So it's a difficult time.
Right. The wonderful mind games of the MMA combat sports world, right?
Oh, it's insane some days. That's for sure.
It is. Well, here we are, SICP 6, Fall Brawl, Saturday, October 5th, down in Evansville, Indiana. Dustin, without telling us, what your full game plan is and this, that, and the other, kind of give us an idea of what you've seen in the reigning champion and what you plan to do in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people who face Zach, I think one of the big things they get caught up in is kind of production. He's definitely a showman, and I think he brings a lot of that energy. He brings a big crowd. He brings a lot of that showmanship to the game. I think that plays on some guys' mind. But he's a heck of a fighter. I mean, he comes out, he hits hard, he kicks hard. He's a skilled grappler. He doesn't have any large glaring holes in his game. He's a very well-rounded, tough fighter. So we're preparing for just that, a really tough, hard-nosed, gritty fight across 5 rounds. I mean, that's what I have to be ready for if I want to take his belt, because he's not going to give it to me kindly. I have no fear that he's going to hit me as hard as he can, as often as he can, because he's that type of guy. So I'm excited to get into the cage with a guy who I think could get himself to the next level. Unfortunately, I think he's going to take an L versus me, and I'm going to have to rebuild from there. But I definitely think he has the skill set to get to the next level. So I'm excited to test myself against a guy like that.
Okay. Well, so I have one last question. I used to do what we called rapid knockout with 5 questions, had absolutely nothing to do. I kind of went away with that. I'm going to start fresh with this one. And we're going to just do a 1 question thing. After you are done fighting, coaching, which could be years from now, because you got kids, you probably gonna bring them up in wherever sports they want to. How do you want your legacy left in combat sports when you are done with the sport?
I would much rather be known for being a good man in combat sports than a good fighter in combat sports. So my goal is to, continue to grow as a person, continue to grow as a martial artist. I think there's definitely, you see a lot of guys who are in the fight game because they want what fighting brings, the money, the attention, the Instagram likes and all that. I do martial arts because I enjoy martial arts. I enjoy the personal growth that it's forced upon me. I enjoy, the mental peace and the things that it brings to me. So my goal for my legacy is just to be known as, the type of guy that I think I am, a good person that helps people grow themselves, on and off the mat, so to speak.
Well, I can definitely say that there's no disagreeing in those words on my end about you, Dustin. I've watched you grow up in this sport, even though I haven't been in the limelight, in front of everything like I used to be back in when I met you at first. Hopefully we're getting back there, but just in a different aspect.
Yeah.
But congratulations on being that role model and setting a great example for not just combat sport fighters, MMA fighters, and stuff like that, and athletes, but anybody kind of looking for that role model to look up to. Dustin Parrish, you are that type of person that I would put my children in and say, look at this guy. This is how you should, kind of live your life.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's the goal. I have my flaws as all humans do. I tell people I'm a sinner on my best day. But I'm trying to always get better as a person, always try to grow, always try to learn, whether that's on the mat, learning new techniques, new strategies, new ideas, or off the mat, growing and reading and trying to absorb new ideas and challenge strongly held beliefs of my own. My goal is to get better every day and see where that takes me.
Well, you're doing a damn good job at it, man. Just keep doing it. Before we leave, you have any shout outs for friends, fans, enemies, sponsors, anything you got? Throw them out there.
Yeah, I always love to give a couple, really basic shout outs. One, to my amazing wife. She is the absolute, my biggest fan, my biggest backer. She'll be out there that night. You'll definitely know who she is. She'll be in a nice dress, screaming really loud when I go out to fight. Obviously, a huge shout out to the team. American Top Team is it is an amazing place to train. I have some of the best teammates and coaches that anyone could ask for. I mean, my number one sparring partner is Austin Tweedy. You saw him coming up. He's only gotten more violent over the years. JJ, my strength conditioning coach, he does a lot to make sure I'm ready to go 5 rounds and be ready for that type of fight. Matt Croft, who comes in and makes sure my kickboxing is sharp and crispy, and I act like I know what I'm doing on my feet some days. Always love to shout out, places like my sponsors, GFY Gear, Ink Therapy Tattoo here in Plainfield is an amazing place. Chris and GFY and all those guys have been with me back since my amateur days, really. So I mean, they've been along this journey with me for a long time. I always love to give them a shout out. I always love to shove out my brother's wrestling academy, one of the top academies in the country, Contenders Wrestling Academy, Brownsburg, Greenwood, and then coming soon to Noblesville. So, I always love to, shout out those people who not just have been around in the near time, but have been around for a long time. So that, I've been really blessed with that. I think I have a really great support system that, I know is with me for the right reasons, been with me for a long time.
Absolutely. Well, we want to continue to watch you grow, and we would love to, be on your side, but I can't be biased. I got to be on both the sides and wish you well. Good luck October 5th. I'm looking forward to a fight, possibly the fight of the night. Performance of the night for both you guys. I think you guys are getting ready to go out there and you're tasting blood, and we'll see what happens. But until then, we're gonna close this chapter, and we're gonna see him next time live. That's right, folks. SICP 6 Fall Brawl presented by D. Patrick Ford Lincoln of Evansville, Saturday, October 5th, live from the Old National Events Plaza in Evansville, Indiana. Get your tickets now. Parrish, tell them what your code is. Parrish?
Code Parrish, yeah. So make sure you get those tickets online. You're not going to want to miss this. Yes, my fight is worth the price of admission, but don't worry. SICP put on a fully stacked card from pillar to post. I've looked at the card. I'm really sad I have to be in the back the whole time, not watching it. But you guys will definitely get your money's worth. Just out of my fight, but definitely out of the rest of the card.
We appreciate the great words, Dustin. And until then, we will see you all Saturday, October 5th from Evansville. Until then, we're out. Peace.